the point of departure of my research was a surprise. I wanted to learn more about cultural images of disability, and I did not find theories and overviews of this subject. I only found texts about some movies, some theater performances, some novels, but I missed a framework, a consistent framework for my questions. So I wondered if disability, the image of disability, has changed in the last 20 or 30 years and is still waiting for a theory in the perspective of cultural studies, because sociology is studying disability as an element of society since many years. But I think, and I found a colleague that shared this impression with me, Julio Checa from Carlos III University in Madrid. We thought that disability, images of disability, are not only be described in society, but also in the imaginations of society. That is to say, in the aesthetic texts, in the fictional texts, where we can study imaginations and not the real images of disability. So we founded a series published by Peter Lang with the title Images of Disability, Literature, Scenic, Visual and Virtual Arts, to underline this aspect that disability is a social fact and a fact of imagination. First of all, in the area of imagination, we can change this image because we ask ourselves how inclusion would be possible if we do not change social structures and at the same time mental structures. And social structures can be changed by social developments, but mental images must be changed by imaginations, by stories in our minds that are offered by aesthetic texts, for example, theater, movie, or novels. Our methods are basically semiotic. We're searching for structures in the texts. First of all, we're looking for framing effects of disability, like plots or narratives, like reference points, norms that form common contexts for disability. We categorize plots of stories and we ask how they assign sense to disability. Our hypothesis is that there are a few plots that are used again and again when you're talking about disability. But we are looking also for methods to unsettle these plots. These plots create expectations, and these expectations create normality and deviance. If you fulfill the expectations, the spectator, the reader, has a feeling of normality. But if you unsettle the expectations, the spectator will be confused, and we are looking for these plots, for the mechanism that can confuse the lector, the spectator, or unsettle his expectations. Because we are thinking that possible worlds, fictional worlds, aesthetic worlds can suspend rational judgment. They can suspend judgment between contradictory utterances. They can ironize plots, common plots. They can ironize reality in the light of possibilities. And they can act by imagination, they can act on reality. Our most surprising finding is that most of the texts we analyze have a standard plot, a stereotype plot. And only a few texts are searching for new plots, recent texts. The standard plot is, for example, an overcoming story, an overcoming plot, or a compensation plot that assigns sense to disability, that makes us feel that disability is good for something, that disability fits into our expectations of normality, that disability is not an attack to human rationality. And then we have a few plots that unsettle our expectations, that raise questions, that deal with ambivalence and contingency of disability, that are not feel-good movies, that are neither nor feel-bad movies, but these are movies or texts or novels or theater performances, but theater performances that leaves us with questions and do not give us answers to the question why, what kind of, what element of our life disability is or can be. We realize that in the last 10, 20 years there's a trend towards texts with more complexity. That, for example, we have the example of autism. In the 80s of the last century, there is one movie about autism, one successful movie about autism. It's a Rain Man with a standard compensation plot. And now we have a lot of movies about autism and movies that leave this image of a super autist that has a great capacity in calculating and so on, but that gives a more differentiated and a more realistic image of autism. I would like to highlight two areas of relevance. On the one hand, disability is not an identity marker like the others, like gender or race or belief, because disability cannot get rid of its negative connotation, even in its best representations, because it always involves impairment. And if not, it is not called disability, it is called giftedness, or it is called talent. Disability includes a negative connotation, and disability must be avoided wherever possible. An attitude that is not shared by other identity markers. On the other hand, I like to stress that disability shows a normative vacuum in our societies. On the one hand, there is a UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disability, signed in 2006, and so on. The first human rights treaty of the third millennium that gives complete rights, full rights to persons, to human diversity, that engages with diversity up to the margins, social margins. And on the other hand, we have the developments, medical developments. Western society are developing methods to bring human being to perfection. For example, by excluding disability, by prenatal testing. The coincidence of the UN Convention and the blood test for pregnant women shows this dilemma, this moral dilemma of our societies, and shows the danger that comes from biomedical discourse, biomedical narrative that makes us believe that perfection is the objective of a society. We just opened a research area with our questions. We have to analyze individual texts, we have to study texts now, we have to sharpen our analytic tools, we have to compare cultures and to learn from other diversity studies. And on the other hand, our subject will become more and more important because of demographic change. Due to the increase of the elderly population, disability will the concepts of disability will change. Disability will be an ever more intrinsic part of our society. So we have to develop new visions, new theories about disability, and not only see disability as an opposite to normality, but disability as a normal element of our societies.